Hey, Hella. Hey, Pascal. Hella, you're muted, Hella.
No, I'm not. Hi. How
How
are
are you?
you?
I'm good. How are you, Pascal?
Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Good. It's good to see you guys.
Same here. In such interesting circumstances.
Yes.
The morning just was really already wonderful. So you guys are off to a good start with the
Thank you.
conference.
Yeah. It's going very nice.
Yeah.
Lewis is also part of yours, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when he shows up, because we have several people who I not letting in now, but I'll look for Lewis.
Okay. Okay. And I don't think we start. Are we starting at 1 or 1:15?
1:15.
Oh, okay. Good.
So
Good.
I'm going to make all of you co-hosts.
Okay.
Okay,
Excellent.
you guys know what to do, like to share your screen and all?
Yeah, I think Lewis is right. Lewis has.
Lewis is in charge of that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So I'll make you all co-hosts just in case there are issues, but I'll make sure. I know Lewis knows, but he's not there yet.
Right.
As soon as I see him, but let me make you guys co-hosts just in case. Make co-host. I don't think there's a limit. If there is, then I'll make sure that Lewis is one
Definitely
of them.
one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, okay. And then at the end, so I have to put in a link. So we have closed captioning very possibly. It did look like it's set to my account. I will put in a link for that. The CEU link for their it says closed caption is available. It must have listened.
Right.
So I'm going to put in how to do that once we let people in. And for CEUs, within 48 hours, they will get an email about that.
Okay.
So a link for that so that you don't have to worry about that. So all you guys have to do is your presentation. And then at the end, it says Louis Lopez has joined my meeting, but I don't, there he is. Okay, let me bring him in. So he'll, welcome Louis Lopez. I will make him co-host. Okay. And I will.
What time? This session is over at 3 o'clock, right?
Yes, it's 1:15 to 3.
Okay.
And I am going to then set I'll set up, that'll be separate. I'll share my screen for the interlude. And then lucky me, I have to run out and get a COVID test. So.
Oh no.
So I will leave it running and hope for the best. So I hate to leave my computer running, and I'm hopeful that when I come back, it wouldn't have created a disaster, and I'll have emails from Harvey saying, "How could you leave your?"
But that doesn't sound so pleasant with that COVID test.
Well, it will only be unpleasant if I get bad results, right? So
that's true.
That is true.
So hello, Louis.
Good way to look at it.
Yes. So let's hope. So Lewis is here. I have made all of you co-hosts. He's not responding. I don't know why he's not muted. But he's not, I don't know if he's hearing us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Yeah, we can now.
Yeah. Do you see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rise up.
Yes. Okay, so you're all here. You are all co-hosts. Lewis, you know how to work that, right? You're sharing the screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna test it now really quick. I've been practicing a lot, so I'm getting better at it.
Okay. Well, so far so good. Yes.
So, and I just want to make sure we can put up the chat. Okay. Great.
Yes. So
I see that.
it's a good idea. I'm sure you guys have done this, whoever's not talking, keep track of the chat just in case.
Right.
I will put in the chat how to do the closed captioning in case they don't see it. But if they're on full screen, it should be pretty obvious on the bottom. So let's see, what time is it? What did I do with all my?
Yeah, and by the way, the workshop is over by 2:30.
Oh, 2:30.
3 o'clock.
No, 2:30. At 2:45, the next set of workshops begin.
Yeah? Oh, how come? Oh, is that wrong in the program? Let me
Yeah,
see.
yeah. You check for today. Today is from 1:15 to 2:30.
Oh, 2:30. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
Okay, I
wow.
have my
Okay.
original schedule I'm looking at is wrong. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, it's been revised. You know, these things get revised constantly, Larry.
So that's even better. That makes more sense because they're usually 75 minutes. So
Right.
we got till 2:30 and then I'll throw on the thing. Oh, I don't have to leave till 3. I may get to turn it off, even better.
Okay, that's better.
So let me see.
Can I, what did I want to ask? Do we have to let people in, or will you do that, Larry?
Okay, so I'm gonna let them all in, but you're all the co-hosts. I will try, I'm gonna stay here, but I'm getting texts and things from the conference, from my colleagues. I may not be looking every minute, but
That's
my
okay.
intention is to watch both your presentation and to continue to let people in. But you
Okay.
guys, if you see somebody's waiting to be admitted and you're not speaking,
We
should
can
also
admit them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see
You
that.
all
we
are
have
co-hosts, you all have
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
ability.
cool.
We're not able to advance the screen being co-host. Louis, you the only one to
No,
get advance?
whoever shares the screen is the only one who can advance it.
Okay. All right. So Louis is.
Oh, Wanda, I know Wanda. She is coming to this workshop.
Yes, I invited her.
You invited her. Okay, now I'm really nervous.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get to her and let her know that we were presenting. So
Okay.
So if Louis is, so since he's sharing his screen, he's the only one who can advance it. And since you guys are obviously, all your slides, I take it, is from
Right.
Louis.
Right.
So you need to work out your signal
Right.
to let Louis know. It's a subtle one is next slide, but if you can do it, Ruth can tell from my pauses when she's supposed to advance them. I don't know how much you guys have done this together, so but you're all watching each other, and nasty look will probably tell Louis what to do. So there's a lot of ways to let him know when he's not the one speaking.
Yeah. Or he can just, and if you're speaking too much, he just goes to the next slide. That's the way you can get us to shut up.
Oh, you must have watched Ruth and I work together before then. Yes, that's a good way to do it too. So.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get, because I printed out the outline on who's doing what slide. That will also help me.
Yeah, I have it here too. And what I found, I don't know, Pascal, for me, I put the, you can, if you open up the chat box, do you have 2 screens or just 1 screen?
1.
Oh, okay, never mind. Because you can kind of, well, otherwise, or you can minimize it so you can see the chat so it doesn't overlap the
PowerPoint slides?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I will, I only have 1. I was able to print out the slides, so that helped.
Okay.
So I went yesterday to get the ink.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is it strange coming back to the office?
It sure was.
I know.
It was so different.
I know. And did you get?
And I went at night.
Did they take your temperature?
Yeah.
Yes.
They have a fancy new machine. I'm gonna use my my headset to, let me just make sure it works, because it gets.
So we won't be able to see people, but they'll see us.
Right, they shouldn't be. We didn't set it to share videos, so and they're all going to be muted. You can unmute them. I believe, I'm trying to remember. I think in meeting mode they can unmute themselves. So periodically. And I'll do this too, but if you should find that they're too loud, you're getting too much background noise, if they have unmuted themselves, in case you don't know, any one of you can go to the toolbar where it says participants. Right. And if you click on the participants, you'll get a list, and you'll see on the bottom it says mute all.
Right.
When you click on mute all, it will mute all of them, not you guys. I don't think it will mute your colleagues. And then what happens is it will ask you, do you want to let them unmute themselves? If you want them to be able to speak up, to ask a question, you'll say yes. And if you don't want them to, you say no. So in the webinar, we just turn everybody off. It's not quite the same in the meetings, but you can mute them and keep them muted if you should only want chat. I always like to talk to them, but that's up to you guys.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Very
You all
clearly.
sound great. The picture is clear, everything's good. So keep in mind also, I don't know how much Zoom you do, people will start writing, it's blurry, I can't hear you. If one person says that, it's their bandwidth. If everybody starts saying it, it's your bandwidth. So if one person says it, don't get distracted. Somebody else should just write, if you're the only one, it's on your end. If a lot of people start saying it, one way to do is to stop sharing screen and then reshare the screen. Often that'll help. Unless it's a permanent problem with your bandwidth, that'll usually clear it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, Larry, you should write a book about this stuff.
Yeah, I do like 5 to 10 a week, so it's so it's
you are a pro.
Yes,
it's
yes.
old news. So I will mute myself at exactly 1:14 if you want. I'll start letting people in so you can get started right on time.
Perfect.
Okay, and I will mute myself at that point, but I'll still be listening. But like I said, I might have to run off, to answer something. But I'll keep trying to admit people. All of you can, and we can all watch the chat. We can all, anything I can do on this, you guys can do too, except that Lewis is the only one who can advance the slides.
Sounds perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I mean,
Good luck, guys.
Thank you, Larry. Then just say next, and I'll move it forward. If there's a time where I need to move it forward myself, I would, but I don't want to distract you if you're in the middle of a flow, by moving the slide. So just say next, and I'll do that. Not a problem.
Or you can also feel free if it feels like you think it's ready to go on. I think I give you permission to move me forward.
If it's okay, then,
me too.
Then I'll do it. Okay,
yeah,
fine.
Me too.
I wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
You in the seat right now to control what happens. So you do your thing.
You know why? You know why, Pascal? Because I got the headphones. That's why.
See, that's that DJ. That's that LOL skill. Like.
And before we start, Pascal, I want to see the rest of your T-shirt. Very cool.
Wow.
Very cool. Very cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So are you wearing, I thought you were sharing yesterday about your missing
T-shirt?
No, and your shoes. I was just
I have socks on that says, if you can read this, what the heck was that? Oh, bring me some wine. So when I put my 2 feet up, whoever is sitting to see what's going on, they'll know that that's a cue.
To get you.
Bring me the next class.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Pascal, it's like going to those Brazilian restaurants that you take the wine, right? Right? That if you turn it green, they keep bringing food. And if you turn it red.
It's like, give me a,
Louis, since you used to live around not too far from here, did you ever go to the Portuguese spot on Jericho Turnpike? It was a Brazilian spot, all you can eat meat?
Yes. Yes, in Jericho. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it, Braça Rodízio?
Oh, I was there. It's a big place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
In on Jericho Turnpike in Garden City Park, in Mineola.
Yeah, when it was Brazilian. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's still there. It actually burned. There was a fire there.
Really?
Last year, but they just reopened up.
I was not aware of that, Mom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fire, and they were closed for a couple of months. They just reopened up.
Wow. And to think, to make that investment to reopen to COVID,
Yeah.
right?
And nobody can go inside like in the beginning. And then now we have sit down. But there's a cousin restaurant that's not too far from there, a smaller one, that was picking up all the clientele that the larger one couldn't.
Wow.
There's also one famous one in Queens Boulevard.
Yes, in College, is it College Point?
So around there, Queens, yeah.
And on Northern Boulevard. There's another one on
Northern, maybe that's the one I mean, Northern Boulevard. Yeah.
All right, it's 1:13.
All right, we're getting ready. Yeah.
So, but there's
so we only have 13 people in the waiting area.
Right. Well, yeah, 14 now. So I'm going to let them in a minute. And then right away, I'm going to just mention in the chat, I'm going to put in the link, not the link, the instructions to find closed captioning. But just so you guys know, if you're in full screen mode, it should be in the lower right hand. It should just offer you on the control bar closed captioning.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen for a second. I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay.
When she comes back, I'll let them in, or I'll let them in if she's not back at 1:15. Who's starting? Or are you introducing all yourselves?
I'm starting, and then I'm gonna bring them in quickly so they can introduce themselves. So we have time, even if she's not here by 1:15, 1:16, we could start because I got the first 4 slides anyway. So
okay, so at 1:15, I should still let them in.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And the participants are increasing, so we have 24 now, 25. Okay, good.
Well, that's all of us. It's 21 waiting, 22 waiting. Yeah, they're all coming now.
Okay, great.
So at exactly 1:15, I'll admit all. And, but it's going up now. 1:15. Okay, I'm letting them in. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
And you can let them know in the chat will be an instruction how to do the closed captioning.
Okay.
I'm back.
Great.
Louis, you got any music you could have as folks put on while folks are coming in?
Oh, I wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
Sorry. Good idea, though. Good idea. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Let's give people a minute or so to continue to come in. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll be starting in a few seconds. I see a number of familiar names. Michael Stoltz, of course. Who doesn't know Michael?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, good afternoon. Hi.
How's everybody doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for asking.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm doing, fabulous. Fabulous. I'm gonna say fabulous. I don't have no pain.
Nice.
And I'm loving being on here. It inspires me. I am doing beautiful.
Nice. Nice to hear. I see Aviva. Hello, Aviva, an old friend.
Yes.
She's everywhere
Hello there.
now.
How
She's
are you?
everywhere now. Everywhere.
Nice to see you.
Of course, Taina had a recent birthday. Happy birthday, Taina.
Thank you so much, Louis.
Finally 21, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I'm finally legal. Nice. Virgo in the house. Yes.
Of course, Wanda, I don't see her, but I do see that she is in. All right. Okay, so let's get ready to start. Good afternoon, everybody. We have my co-presenters and myself consider probably one of the most important conversations you could have today at work, in your personal life, and with your community. We're very happy that we are going to be able to share some of our thoughts, comments, observations, experiences with you on how to introduce anti-racist policies in our agencies. We could easily say we're only at the very early stages of this, but we have done a number of projects and a number of activities that we're very happy to share with you and talk a little bit about it with you. So let's get started. So the outline today, of course, we're going to welcome and yes.
Louis, this is Hella. I just want to, just before we get started, just to let people know that in the chat box, there are instructions for if you want closed caption for while we are talking here. That should be one of these wonderful features that NYAPRS has introduced. And I think for now, maybe we could ask everybody except for some presenters to go off camera, just so that we can focus, because there's lots of people on this presentation today. So thank you. Okay, go ahead, Louis.
All right. Okay, thank you. So a quick outline review. Welcome everybody. We're going to do a quick introduction. So we could on the chat box, please write your names, agencies, what you do in your agency, and also the region you're covering. Are you in state or out of state? Okay. Learning objectives, establishing a vision, keeping it real. We're going to talk a little bit about transforming agencies and transforming our services. A quick history of the ACT Institute. We are part of the ACT Institute. In a second, I'm going to ask my co-presenters to briefly introduce themselves, but the ACT Institute was established in 2003, moved to the Center for Practice Innovations at the New York State Psychiatric Institute in Washington Heights in 2009. The ACT Institute provides training and implementation support to 108 teams across the state of New York and focuses on services provided by ACT as a time service, right? Because ACT, unlike the beliefs in the past, should be time. It should be something. It should not be something that is for life. We use a blended learning approach for required training as well as role training. We do consulting, we do learning collaboratives, we do webinars. We work in connections with OMH, the Department of Mental Hygiene, the Department of Homeless Services. We provide services in the area of justice involvement. We work with the Fidelity, and overall we provide clinical and recovery-based support to everyone that receives services in ACT, but also, as you could see, for people that just receive services, period, throughout the state of New York. And I would like to pass the platform really quick to my co-presenters. First, Hella.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hella Torning. I am the director of the ACT Institute here at the Center for Practice Innovations, and I'm really, really happy to be here. So I am in New York City. That's where our main office are, but we are really involved with ACT teams throughout New York State. right now I'm sitting in the Catskills in my home office, but it's great to be here on this first day of fall. I miss going up to NYAPRS conferences though, because I love the drive up to where the conference used to be here in the Catskills, and it's a beautiful drive. Anyway, great to see everybody.
Thank you, Pascal.
All right. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My first NYAPRS conference. Finally, I made it. Finally, I rised up, Louis. My name is Pascal Genois. I am the Director of Training at the ACT Institute. I'm actually joining you guys from my home as well in Long Island, although the office is in New York City. I am currently right now situated in Long Island joining you today. I'm excited to be with you and to actually introduce such a loaded topic to folks. And thank you all for who have courageously entered the room. So that's part of the work, is actually taking the first step in entering certain rooms and then actually being open to discussion and dialogue and ways to take on action steps to move forward. So welcome.
Wonderful, thank you. And my name is, again, Luis Lopez, and I am the coordinator for Fidelity and Best Practices for the ACT Institute. I am talking to you from New Jersey. So I'm representing one of those bodies that is joining the conference from out of state. So even though I am originally from New York and continue to work in New York, right now I reside in central New Jersey. So again, it's a pleasure to be doing this. Thank you very much. And I hope you're ready, because this is going to be a wonderful journey, and we look forward to taking the journey today with you. So I'm going to ask Pascal to take the platform on our next two slides.
All right. So I just want to also acknowledge folks that have written in the chat box where they're from, their agencies. We have folks representing from all across the state in various settings. So welcome to you all. I see some familiar names, some names that I don't know, but welcome. So as part of the welcome and part of the introductions, before we even get started and even talking about the topic today, we want to bring up the word positionality. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the word, have heard the word, or what comes to mind when you hear the word. But in talking about a definition and setting the tone, you know, our positionality is basically the multiple identities that we ascribe to. Some offer us power, some offer us privileges, and some offer us disadvantages. However, whatever those identities are, they are what shape our perspective of the world around us, right? So my positionality is something that I can't move away from. Oftentimes, those identities are things that are given to me by my environment and by people around me without me even owning. So some of those identities are some that I could own too, and I can agree with, and some that are just given to me for the sake of society or the environment that I'm in. So when we look at positionality, it's important for us to talk about what's your positionality. Who are you? How do you show up in spaces? I'll give an example. For myself, who am I? How do I show up in spaces? My positionality is my identity. Some of the identities that I carry, I am a Black woman. I can't hide that. You see it, it's in your face. Oftentimes, the only Black one. And that comes up for me a lot internally in the work that I do, in the environments that I enter, especially as I travel throughout New York State, and oftentimes in my hometown in Long Island. I am of Caribbean descent. My parents are from Haiti, so I'm a Haitian American. I identify as that. 100. I often quote, I got 1804 spirit within me. So for those of you that understand and know what that means, you got me. For those of you that don't, look it up. Research and read. When something that comes out to you is told to you in the environment and it doesn't sound familiar, Google is the best thing that was ever created. So look it up, educate yourselves. And that's part of the things that we're going to talk about. In some spaces, I'm a professor. In many spaces, depending on my where I'm at, if I'm working, I'm a licensed professional. I am a social worker. In some spaces, my mother role comes into play. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a woman at that. You know, so again, these are identities that whether I want to ascribe to or not are given to me by society, and it's something I have learned to ascribe to. So as I share that, my question to you is in helping you to join in or engaging you to join in on the conversation, what's your positionality? How do you show up at work, especially since we're talking about at work? Yes, Jonathan, you know what I mean about 1804. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And actually, as we wait for folks to share about them, I'm going to invite Louis in to talk about his positionality as well as, and also Hella.
Interesting, Pascal, because I share a number of cultural identities with you, and then I have some that are slightly different. But I am also a person of color. Okay, I also have an Afro-Caribbean background, like you do. You know, my family doesn't come from Haiti, but they do come from Puerto Rico, which are neighboring islands. The struggles of colonial times were very similar. The same struggles that Puerto Rico share, Haiti share in the movement of human beings and oppression and pre-capitalist takeovers that the islands experience until right now, until today. I do have certain privileges. I am a man and that's a privilege that I walk around with. My skin is somewhat light, so that's another privilege that I carry. And I understand that. It is unfair, but it's a privilege, and it's clear. But I also sometimes am the only person of color in rooms as a Latino. And as a Latino, there's a overwhelming amount of stigma that I walk around with, given to me by a more powerful society. Things like I'm forever be an immigrant, even though I am. Puerto Ricans have been citizens since 1917. You know, the question if Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, even though we have been, and other not too nice issues that that you have to walk around with. But positionality is something that I cannot forget because it's with me every time I go to work, every time I come home, every time I walk through the streets of the city. And these are things that I carry. How about you, Hella?
Yeah, very interesting to hear. And so I'm coming from a very different perspective. You know, I am a white woman, and that carries a lot of white privilege and access in many ways. And so, but I'm also a daughter and a sister and a mother and also a grandmother. And I am an immigrant from Denmark, and I came here as a young adult. But I think, you know, when you think about my white privilege and what I have access to just because of the color of my skin, and what group in the society I belong to, even as an immigrant, even though I think of myself as an immigrant and I have my immigrant struggles, but they in no way, by any means, can be compared to people of color who come to this country. Because if I walk around on the street, nobody will know I'm an immigrant. I'm seen as a white woman. And I'm also a social worker. I also have, yes, I have a degree in social work, and I am a trainer at times, and I'm sometimes I teach. But I think my whiteness is really what sets the stage for giving me access in a way, and privilege that I get just automatically because of the color of my skin. So that's what I come into rooms with. I think we really would like people to also share, in the chat box. But maybe we can, the way that maybe Louis, we can go on to sort of the next slide. We're inviting people to talk about how, what their personality, how you show up at work, and sort of what that brings with you of privilege, and also both advantages and disadvantages. Thank you.
And as we wait for folks, there's one part of identity or part of identity that we didn't bring up, and that's our pronouns, our gender pronouns. Yeah, so to invite others into the room as well, and to offer some welcome. So my pronouns are her, she, her, and hers. Louis?
My pronouns are he, him, and his. Hella?
She, her, and hers.
All right.
Thank you for bringing that up, Pascal. That's
yes.
right. We have to remember that.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I think people are beginning to write in the chat box.
So Pascal, I'm wondering if we could invite maybe 1 or 2 people to speak, just 1 or 2 people at this time, because we have a lot of people, just to see if they could share with us what their positionality is. Maybe Aviva, would you like to try it?
Sure. Did you ask me? Just checking.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Sure. So I am a white female, and I consider myself a modern Orthodox Jew from Eastern European heritage or descent. I am both an Israeli citizen and an American citizen. And yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
We have a comment here from Laura saying age can also be a factor. Absolutely, absolutely, Laura. It's about you. It's about how you show up. Not saying that that may be a factor for you, but it can in certain spaces, right?
That can be, people have various assumptions, perception of you depending on your age.
Okay. We have white male, William, Executive Director of New York State Office of Mental Health Psychiatric Center. So, okay, that title gives a definition as well as in the sense of identity. I'm a cultural mutt, African American, English, and Irish, Jonathan says. Janice, white middle-aged woman, college educated and life experienced. Okay. Lucas Leslie, I show up as a 24-year-old white Puerto Rican, light-skinned, cisgender male in the U.S. nationality, low socioeconomic status, but raised in a high socioeconomic status family. Okay. Okay. So I think these are the ideas. Anybody else that wants to come? Jonathan has raised his hand. Feel free.
Actually, I'm sorry. This is actually Philip Williams Cook. I did not have the link to this workshop. Actually, Jonathan Stone gave it to me, so that's probably why his name shows up. My apology.
Okay. No problem.
So I'm the one who said that I'm multiracial. I'm African American, English and Irish descent. I look younger than my actual age. When I tell people my real age, they don't believe me. And I consider myself a Lutheran Episcopalian.
All right. All right. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. I see Maria's comment. I show up to work as an openly gay woman. People, including some workers, have assumed I use they or them. Even he. My pronouns are she and her. I'm also white. I'm assuming that that's white, Maria, and 58, even though people assume I'm in my 30s. Okay. I have been known to wear a suit, sometimes a tie. Okay. Maria, that reminds me of one of the qualities or identities that I often try to live by, and I'm sure it's perceived in how I respond to certain things and how I express myself. Just like you said, openly, I am unapologetically Black in the spaces that I enter. So that's something that I often share depending on the spaces as well, and owning that. So some of these identities and owning them, but then helping to really hold people accountable for how they respond to them as well, right? Kevin, you want to share?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for having me and doing this conference. So I wanted to share, like, I'm a gay Latino descent, Colombian, and I work in the peer specialist field, and I think using pronouns is so important because that's part of someone's identity, and I think as a minority, we are all, we have to be accepting to all, backgrounds, gender, race, religion. Like, we have to, be more accepting and more open, and being cultural, responsive, and we have that responsibility to if we want to, be, if we want to change, the world, we have to start within our own minority community, and then, like, accept each other. How can, I'm a, big ally, like, I don't think I have African, descent in my family. But I'm such a Black Lives Matter, ally. And, like, there's times where, like, there, if you're supportive of that, like, you have to, within our own community, even my own community with being gay, like, I have to, be more responsible in the way I refer to people, the way I carry myself, the way I, having the, the right language and using the, right words, and, like, not trying to offend anyone, I think is so important, especially, like, if you're in this field of working with different backgrounds, working with people that have different life experience, and stuff like that. I work with a lot of people that have, struggles, with how, the color of their skin. Like, I definitely want to be, an ally. And how do I do that? By doing my research, by talking to people that deal with the, the struggles. Like, I can say all day, I struggle being gay, or I'm Latino, but if I want to, reach out my hand to the other side, with my African brothers and sisters, I have to sit down with them, and I have to talk to them and see what they're at. Because, like, to me, if I get pulled over by, a police officer, I'm not thinking in my head that I'm going to get shot, and stuff like that. And I think, in the way of everything that's going on, we have to have our voices heard. And
you're absolutely right. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry for monopolizing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You got a lot of passion in you, and you just expressed actually helping us to set the tone, because that's what we're talking about today. Like, how do you do the work? Like, how, and what's our responsibility in doing the work? So I'm gonna pass this along to Helen.
Thank you so much.
Yes, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I see that other people are introducing themselves and really remembering, sort of all aspects of their identity, and this is the ways we are showing up to work. So what we're hoping for this conference, we always have to have learning objectives. So we are hoping that after attending this workshop, that you will identify some of the current social justice issues that are impacting our work today. And of course, that also the way we show up at work and what that means at work, our various identities. After attending this workshop, that you will review and think about and process some of the challenges encountered when we are talking about how our current structure and social issues and social institutions are really steeped in white supremacy and white privilege. And after attending this workshop, we will get some ideas. Hopefully will be some ways of exchanging information and resources and knowledge about how we can change and make changes or have dialogue about these structures in our agencies or where we work. So, so again, these are what we are hoping that you will get out of participating. We'll all get out of participating in this workshop. So what we want to begin to, and I think we are admitting people as we go along here. So we are welcoming everyone who's joining us. Try to look at the chat box to see who else is here and introduce yourself. And also we are asking people to think about how they are showing up at work. So let's talk about, these are the questions that we want to begin to think about. What do we mean when we say white supremacy? What do we mean when we say structural racism? And how does this impact our Black, Indigenous, people of color, or BIPOC health and behavioral health in the organization and in right now as we in our work. So let's talk white supremacy. So what does that really mean, and how? And I'm going to start talking about this, and then I hope you all kind of join me with this in this conversation. Because it's actually, I think, maybe not so complicated, but it may be a complicated topic for us to really get into. For white people, and I can talk about my own journey with this terminology. So obviously, you can tell I'm a white person. I'm a white woman. And when this, when people talked about white supremacy and sort of included me in that idea of, oh, you are part of the white supremacy, it was very difficult for me to really think about that, because when I thought about white supremacy, I thought about hate groups, white pride, and really hate groups against people, BIPOC, people of color, Black and Indigenous and people of color. So, but then, somebody showed me, and you can go to the next slide, please. Somebody sent this to me and said, Hella, look at this and let's think about what white supremacy really is and what that means. So white supremacy, in a way, is the structure, the way our country is built, what our foundation of our culture is really built on. Whoops. Thank you. On this the idea of white supremacy, things that are being held in place, institutions. Everything is being held in place by whiteness or white supremacy, meaning that whiteness is better than has more power and privilege, and is just better. So when you look at this chart with this iceberg kind of, or triangle here, it lists the things that we are, when we think about white supremacy, things that we identify or say is just not acceptable. And I don't know if pictures are on my, okay, here on my screen, I can move our videos here, but at the top here, at the top of the iceberg, of course, are the things that we would find socially unacceptable, the overt white supremacy, of lynching, hate crimes, when we use the N-word, swastikas, all of these ideas that, or actions that are really so unacceptable or terrifying. But underneath that black line are all the ways that we may think about white supremacy being much more in subtle, in actions by white people that are maybe more socially acceptable. Things that we see everywhere. So if you can start picking out some of there are lots of things on this slide. But for example, I'm going to start looking at something that I think has been sort of ingrained in me. Color blindness, that's how I grew up. Color doesn't matter. White silence, you know, I sort of keep my mouth, even though I hear something that might sound racist, I may be quiet. Please join me in if you can think of something here that, you know, I think the one that's right in the middle, don't blame me, I never owned slaves. Don't blame me, I didn't even live in this country during that time, you know. So these are the things that I think are much more sort of unconscious and subtle ways of really enacting the idea of white supremacy. And once I when I saw this, and I was sharing this with my colleagues, when I saw this chart or this graphic, I really understood how I had to own and that there's responsibility in understanding the word white supremacy, what that really means in the many areas of its of dimensions of our world today. So you can, you know, I see some things coming up in the chat box. So Pascal and Louis, maybe you can look at that and see and help me point out some of the things that people might be responding to as they're looking at this graphic.
People seem to be responding to the actual visual of this, right? And asking for links. So I think Louis has answered in the chat box that you will be given, actually folks have actually looked up the link and are sharing it in the chat box of the visual. Very nice, all right, I love that, this new age. So you'll have access to the PowerPoint slides as well. But one thing I wanna make notice of is that although we see all this and we're saying white supremacy and visibly thinking that white people, right? But white supremacy lies and is ingrained within people of color as well as how we practice. So some of us who are of color also feel this way, right? Because of the ingrainedness of white supremacy within our lives. One that stands out for me is the all lives matter statement. Especially as we are intentionally saying Black Lives Matter, you have folks that is all lives matter and saying Black Lives Matter is divisive. So how do we, you know, how does that sound? How does that come up as well? Police brutality is another one. I see other comments, there's several comments that folks are saying, how is a statement there's only one human race considered racist? It sounds like a good thing to believe. Now, Evelyn, that is awesome. However, our society is not built on one human race. Our society breaks up and has created race in order to have social economic power. So race wasn't a race thing until it became established in order to gain power and dominance. So unless we go back all those years, so it shows you all the work that we have to do. And Cameron makes a comment, until Black Lives Matter, all lives can't matter, right? Someone has married the Ibram Kendi's book, How to Become an Anti-Racist. Also, yes, the statement Blue Lives Matter should be in here. You're absolutely right, Taina, because it is built on white supremacy. And that is another topic in and of itself in so many ways. Kevin has something to share.
Yeah, so I was gonna, I wanted to add, also like say all lives matter. You know, all lives can't matter if Black lives don't matter.
We got
so when
that.
you try to educate, you know, because I live with my older brother, you know, and stuff like that. I rent from him and stuff like that, and he's a Trump supporter. And I try to educate him on, you know, this isn't true. Like, all lives matter, you know, cannot matter until Black lives matter. Black lives matter doesn't mean that only Black lives matter. No, it means that they matter too, just as much as all of us, you know?
Absolutely, Kevin. And I think that really goes to our point around this, right? But
yeah.
What does white supremacy now look like to people of color? Are folks looking at this visual? You see the woman of color, she's at the
obstacles.
Face, and so is the white man, visibly white man, right? Of a lighter skin, but visibly supposed to be white. And his statement, and white fragility, absolutely, Taina, is something. And look at the difference of path. Look at the difference of path that this person, the white person, male, has compared to the woman of color. Look at how many things are in her way. It's the same distance, but not the same obstacles. And look at how the hurdles are put to the side. So this white person can choose not to jump over the hurdles and go around it, and there's still a path. But look at all the challenges that person of color has to go through in order to get to the same destination. Food for thought, guys.
Louis, what gets me here is the alligator. I mean, every obstacle here is complicated, but the alligator just gets to me. It just shows brutality. It shows brutality and violence when you put an alligator in there. It's just amazing. What a graphic illustration of the struggles that people go through.
Yes, and look at the barbed wire. So you could go over it, but you're gonna get cut. You're going to get cut. And will you be able to still continue to go on? So all of these obstacles are set in place for you to fail and for you to fall. But you know what I love about especially being of color and being a Black woman? Despite all the obstacles, we get to the end. So when you get to the end, knowing all the obstacles that you've been through, there's nothing anyone can't take away from you. So food for thought. And so it makes it a little bit, not easier, but in a little bit more, not tolerable, but certain tasks do not become such a challenge compared to.
So Pascal, there's quite a few comments in the chat, and I just want to refer back for people to take a look at the chat to sort of see the reactions to the chart. There was from Amanda. Oh, where did the comment go? Hold on.
She said it was a powerful message.
Right, all those obstacles and the Game of Thrones. I don't watch that show, but I know this is there's a lot of things in here, right? The white man in the photo has less to worry about. People of color have a lot more struggle, and I think he probably doesn't really understand that difference. I think as white people, unless we really open our eyes, don't see that. Aviva is also saying that. And the white man in this graph is not even aware. Oh yes, exactly what I was saying. Yes, you're right. Of the obstacles his opponent is facing, he's staying right away and wants to get, there first. So this is a wonderful kind of illustration, and I think important because it really gets us to see very vividly and right there, what the difference is when we are talking about white supremacy. So I just want to go, before we move on to sort of the next thing, I came across this definition, that I think really helped me understand it. This is from David Gilborn. He's a critical race theory scholar, and he says, by white supremacy, I do not mean to allude only to the self-conscious racism of white supremacy hate. That's what I was talking about, that, right? That it's not just about the people who exhibit white pride or hate other people, and people of color particularly, or Nazis who hate the Jews. It's not really what I'm talking about. What he's saying, I refer instead to a political, economic, cultural system in which whites overwhelmingly control power and material resources, conscious and unconscious ideas of white supremacy and entitlements that are widespread, and relations of white dominance and non-white subordination are daily reenacted across a broad array of institutions, social settings. And this is my call to the white people in this workshop today, that we as white people really have to open our eyes and look at what this really means, and be very thoughtful about how we also engage in supporting our colleagues and standing up for colleagues of BIPOC, from the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And then I'm just gonna end, and please also chime in the chat box if you recognize this. This is some of the characteristics that has been put forth about us white people and the white supremacy culture. We often tend to hoard power. We fear open conflict. We are somewhat individualistic. We strive, I'm just going to pick some of this issues that are put bullet points here, and please add if we're missing something, but we tend to be very perfectionistic. We get defensive when we are being challenged about sort of what our sense of whiteness and white supremacy and privilege is challenged. And paternalistic, I think, is a big one, and either or thinking, and then minimizing. I think this is the one that I really want to stress, is that we often minimize the obstacles that you're facing is, like that woman is facing, is they're not that bad. Everybody has an opportunity. You just have to work harder. And so I just want to kind of end with that and see if other people, Louis and Pascal, whether other people had other characteristic of white supremacy culture that they have identified.
So Jenny added, when I think of white supremacy, I think of capitalism, and Philip agreed.
Yeah.
Demonizing African spirituality is a characteristic of white supremacy, absolutely. Offend people with oppositional views. Okay, snowflakes, Louis has in parentheses. Jump in, Louis.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot in social media, a lot of times when people kind of make a point or have some type of protest against certain ideologies, they're referred as snowflakes, like, they have their weak skin, and again, minimizing and criticizing. In other words, don't complain. Be quiet. Stay quiet. Don't say anything. If you protest in the street, you're wrong. If you put your knee down in front of a game, you're wrong. If you make a comment and you're an actor or a musician, you're wrong. In other words, just shut up. Don't say anything. There's no way. There's no platform where people could complain. Just shut up.
Yep. And the society give people of color a role to play. And here's a great comment about snowflakes, Louis. But aren't snowflakes snowflakes can join together into avalanches. That's a good one.
That was beautiful.
And blizzards too. It's whatever it is, it's catastrophe. And colorism was another. Diana mentioned Karens, and there's been a phenomenon and a characteristic around that name as well. All right, Louis, take us.
So over here, we talk a little bit, Pascal, on barriers that could be experienced by years and years and years of policies, laws, practices, behavioral expectations coming from an ideology of white supremacy. Long history of mistreatment, misunderstanding, abuse, neglect of Black, Indigenous, people of color by a number of government institutions, including what NYAPRS is working on, right? Behavioral health and mental health systems, creating mistrust due to white supremacy ideology and structural racism, right? So even the medical model is an example of white supremacy. It was originally developed and created by white males, you know, and that's the ideology that goes into the medical model. So that's a good example of that. Treatment decisions are often made without a voice of service participants and their family natural supporters. How many decisions have clinicians made throughout history where participants, service recipients, families have nothing to do with the decision? They're just made because the clinician or the administrator or the agency knows better. They know better, they know best, right? Culture is never considered. Many times when these decisions are made like this, culture is only considered when participants and families are part of the discussion. When participants and families are part of the discussion, then you could argue that culture and background and my trauma is included in the services that I'm receiving. Until I am included, that's not happening. Any thoughts, Pascal, Helen?
I just was saying I wanted to read Philip's message to everybody. In the LGBTQ culture, there are terms used like rice queen in quotes and vanilla snow queen to describe what kinds of people, folks who identify as LGBTQ are or may be attracted to.
Yeah, these are words that keep communities oppressed.
Yes.
Keep communities down, you know, stay down. Do not talk, do not promote who you are, do not be proud of who you are, right? The language is very powerful. Language is very powerful, very powerful.
Absolutely. And then also it continues to oppress the color through the color of your skin with the colorism, right? The darker the skin, the lower you become on that totem pole. So it's to keep certain structures in place. And then this rolls us into how white supremacy then falls within the structures of how we function, structural racism. So when you hear the word structural racism, what are some things that come to mind to you? How does racism represent itself within the structures around us, within our environments? I can give you one, I could start with one. I'm on Long Island. And this is something that's practiced throughout various parts of the state, but redlining. Redlining is a form of structural racism. As much as we want to try to get out of it, it's still ingrained in how and who and where folks live. Okay. What other structural racism? Yep, absolutely, Evelyn. And it's something that will be very hard to really remove itself because it's ingrained within our systems.
Yeah, that's I have to be honest, Evelyn, you make a brilliant comment here. I mean, we could have just a workshop on that. Let's just start with doing that, right? Even though I grew up in the streets of the South Bronx during the 70s and early 80s, and most of my neighbors were African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans. That was a word that was used across the street a lot. And I grew up in New York City. And I always throughout my life, I always had people that use a street slang with me. I have never, ever, ever respected the N-word, even when it's used among friends. I don't use it myself, and it was never allowed in my house. So I think when it comes to the N-word, you gotta go family by family. I know in my house, I don't respect it, I don't use it. I don't care how you mean it, you're not gonna use it in front of me, I will let you know. But different people have different opinions. All I know is that if you're not a person of color, don't use the N-word. It's not gonna work out for you well. That's all I know.
And I mean, our language, right? It's ingrained within certain language to the point where we're socially accepting it of ourselves, right? And feeling that that's the only way to get by. And Dave Chappelle, I don't know if folks follow him. I think he's a genius comedian that touches on real life stuff and still got you laughing, but you laughing like, oh my gosh, that is so right. But he just said it. And he talks about this, right? He talks about the word. A beautiful, and you have certain state parks I saw that was mentioned, like Robert Moses State Park on Long Island, who's also known to be a part of the movement of making sure redlining was something that was practiced, segregated school systems and housing. Sorry, Hella, jump right in.
No, I was just going to say the way he built the parkways really made it so that people couldn't, only certain people with little cars, not buses or other mode of transportation, could get to the beaches.
Yeah. So these are things that we've had around us for many years, and we continue to see and not pay attention to. These are statues that are ingrained. So structural, the destruction of the South Bronx, absolutely. How certain communities were completely washed out and fired out and killed out just because of its production, just because of feeling a threat. So cultural valuation forms, okay, have seen cultural valuations form where if the client is white, it's filled out NA or not applicable, as if white people are standard to which POC, people of color, are compared. We even design our programs. What about some of our evidence-based practices? And Helen, you're gonna go into the definition. Right?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that when we talk about the structural racism, how it refers to the totality of ways in which society fosters racial discrimination through all the different examples that people are giving, through mutually reinforcing system of housing, education, employment, earnings, benefits, credits, media, healthcare, and criminal justice. These patterns and practices in turn reinforce discriminatory beliefs, values, and distribution of resources and access, right? So who have access to what? So I just want to put that in there. I think actually that I was looking it up in the dictionary, and the Oxford dictionary is also working on redefining and defining what structural racism means.
Here's another definition, right, of structural racism. We call it social determinants, but this is racism, right? I look at COVID, folks that experienced the most deaths and the most repercussions. It's always people of color, and we say poor. We add the word poor, and which is something that we have deemed applicable in so many ways across the board, just applied to every person of color, which is not true. But anyway, look at how racism, right? Structural racism plays itself out, and how it can definitely impact your access to mental health, great mental health services. It also brings up a risk for mental illness. Yes, gentrification absolutely is another version. You have trauma, adverse early life experiences, housing instability. Those are structurally designed. That's through racism as well, structural racism. Social exclusion and social isolation. Poor neighborhoods and built environments, guys, by design, and we tend to blame, but knowing that the system was set up this way structurally. Poverty, low income areas, low education, poor access, as mentioned, to quality healthcare, food insecurity, underemployment versus employment. Again, all of these are confirming a lot of the things that you guys are saying in the chat box. And I love that folks are sharing resources. Again, very live topic. This next diagram actually shows another version of what racism looks like structurally. Lewis, the next one. All right. And Lewis is going to take us on with this one.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Well, this is a very, very interesting diagram. And this diagram came from another presentation that I did with a wonderful, wonderful presenter that both Hela and Pascal know, Dr. Jennifer Moulin. And the reason I'm saying her name is that because we just love her so much and we care about her, and she's just a great, great educator. And here, she's really one of the experts in the topic of gatekeeping. And these are the gatekeeping structures that control communities, right? And you'll recognize them quickly when you think about poor communities in urban areas that are mainly resided by people of color, right? Gatekeeping through policing, right? Gatekeeping through policy, gatekeeping through housing, gatekeeping through public assistance, gatekeeping through healthcare, gatekeeping through education, through jobs, through the legal system. What does that mean, gatekeeping? It means that these are systems that pretty much have the power of movement. Who leaves the community and who stays, who does well in the community and who doesn't, who eats well in the community. Think about that for a second. Eating well, right? Let's just talk about that for a second. Let's just give a concrete example, right? Think of the common neighborhoods where you have a large number of people of color residing in that community, right? What are the typical things that you do not see? Let's start with that, right? You don't see a Starbucks. You don't see a Whole Foods supermarket, right? You don't see an Aldi's, right? What do you see? What do you see? A lot of Chinese restaurants, right? A lot of
stores.
Oh, right? A lot of liquor stores, grocery stores, bodega, right? You get your food from bodegas. And what do they have in the bodegas? The potato chips, the candy bars, right? The refrigerators full of juice and Pepsi and Coca-Cola and Sprite, right? So the diets that a lot of individuals in those communities are getting are not healthy. What do the stores sell? Cigarettes, alcohol, right? Things that might not be the most healthy things, right? So that's a good example of gatekeeping, right? If you go to a gentrified neighborhood, what do you see in the grocery store? You see smoothies. You see vegetable drinks. You see salad bars. You see a Starbucks, where when you get a meal, you get it measure and weight. You know, the bagels are smaller. They got healthier things on it. The coffee is delicious, right? So you see the difference here. That's one example. And we could go into all of these different gatekeeping systems and compare them, right? This is real. These are not things that we're making up. You see this every day. You go to any neighborhood right now that struggles with these gatekeeping systems, and you'll see the difference between this and other neighborhoods that are similar to those. What's the next slide? Let's talk about intergenerational trauma and how all these gatekeeping systems and how all these social determinants affect the behavioral health and mental health of people that live through it, not by one generation, but by generation through generation through generation through generation. Okay, and you have people that have lived this from their grandfathers to their parents, and now they themselves are living it. And guess what? If you are a trauma survivor, part of that trauma goes to who? Goes to your children. It goes to your children. Okay, this pyramid is an example of what the impact of trauma could do to the life of somebody. But look at all the things that are involved here. Look at the bottom of the pyramid, right? Historical trauma, the stuff that came from my family, from my community, from my city. It's in me now. Now you got the social conditions, all the social determinants that Pascal was talking about, unemployment, education, all the gatekeeping systems that I was talking about, housing, police violence, right? That affects who I am as a child, how I'm growing up. It affects my way of filtering things, of looking at the world. It affects how now I behave. If I'm a little bit too aggressive, if I'm a little bit too violent, if I'm a little bit too quick on my answers, if I'm a little bit non-compliant, if I get angry right away because people are telling me what to do, how I deal with people of power, right? All those things affect me, right? Which could eventually affect my health because I might engage in things that are not healthy, which eventually affects what I do in my life, which eventually for many people in these communities only means one thing, an early death. Any thoughts about this pyramid on the chat box? Any thoughts about gatekeeping on the chat box? Any thoughts about social determinants on the chat box? Kaina, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to say thank you so much for sharing this information. I am a big on transgenerational trauma and how epigenetics is ingrained in that, as we have, it is a proven determinant in how people are living today. And thank you for sharing that. I think it's important that people should really start to know the history of why government and where their neighborhoods are and why they are the way that they are. I personally live in the Lower East Side, which is quote unquote the melting pot of New York City these days. But I can literally see from my apartment in Ludlow and Houston, all the lack of social determinants in my area, and how it's structured, and where the Latinos are, and where are the Asians, and where are, my Jewish neighborhood is. And you can really see how money is being funneled, how in these zip codes, the census and everything, how things are being funded. I'm telling you, it's so important that we know all of these things, because in hindsight, it'll give us all a clearer definition of why things are the way that they are in this country. So thank you so much for sharing that piece, Louis. That was very, very enlightening for me. Thank you.
Beautiful comments. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass the platform to Hela. And we only got 10 minutes, so we do want to talk briefly about the work we have done in our program, in our institute. So Hela, you got the platform.
Thank you, Louis, and thanks for all the comments in the chat box and also from Tanya. So I think the big question out there for all of us is how do we begin to address systemic racism? How do we transform our work environments, our agencies, our teams, our work with the people that receive services from us, or anybody else in the behavioral health workforce group, and how do we also impact our community, and particularly as we know that the interactions that Black, Indigenous, people of color often have with the local police can have very dire consequences, as we also have learned this past few weeks with Paul, sorry, I'm losing my, by Daniel Prude. So thank you for sort of thinking about this with us. So let us go to what we are thinking about could be some possible steps, and that we can to really with the overall goal of moving towards anti-racist organizations where we work.
All right. So step one, let's keep it real, guys. Let's keep it real. What role do we play as gatekeepers? What role do our organizations play? What role do we play within the system? as well within the communities that we serve. So having difficult conversation is so key. And that's where it challenges the discomfort, right? Who is it difficult for? Who's creating the discomfort? Who does it create the discomfort for? And oftentimes it's not about that. It's about making sure that white people are not uncomfortable in these conversations. I'm just going to be very frank and real. So difficult conversation. And then also too, and let's be truthful about this in so many ways. Just as uncomfortable as it is for white people, it's uncomfortable for people of color too, because guess what? There's not an equal balance here. If as a Black person or Black woman, I share my thoughts and my views, are you going to now categorize me and marginalize me and also penalize me, right, for what I'm sharing or how I feel? How can we sit at the table to actually talk these things out and come to a better resolution or come to a conclusion or a working, a place to work from? So processing, leaving opportunity for processing uncomfortable moments. And that's part of a relationship, right? I don't know if anyone is married here in the room. I've been married for 21 years this year, and that is the most difficult relationship or difficult thing that I've ever done in my life, is to stay married. So it's very much, there are those uncomfortable, those difficult conversations. Think about it from a relationship, a humanistic perspective, especially if we are vested in that relationship and it's something that is important and we have a commitment together and we have something that we're all striving for, right? Educating yourselves. Educating. As I mentioned earlier, when I mentioned 1804, for those of you that don't know, go and research. I mentioned researching and educating yourself on things that come up, modeling and sharing of information. I want to say that sometimes, often, the role that is given to the oppressed is to teach the oppressor how not to oppress, and that's not fair. It is not the role of the oppressed to teach the oppressor how not to oppress. It is not the role of the oppressed to teach the oppressor. So sometimes when modeling is something that can be effective, do it with self-preservation. That is so key. Self-preservation, and then braveness as well. Braveness comes along with difficult conversations. Oftentimes we say safe spaces, but it's really brave spaces, because who determines if a space is safe for you, right? So brave space, and when I say brave spaces, this next slide speaks to it and brings it home. If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. That's Shirley Chisholm. Harvey talked about earlier, if you're not at the table, then you on the menu. Now, sometimes we're not all invited to the table. Be brave enough to bring your folding chair so you can sit at the table and let your voice be heard. That's part of the work within institutions and part of deconstructing white supremacy that's within the structures of the organizations that we work for, as well as the country that we live in. Now, how do we get this all started at the workspace? And Hella?
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. And I think thank you for really, and again, I'm gonna call out to my white colleagues here in terms of our role in this, and by learning and educating ourselves about the history and about why the power structure is the way it is. So one model of, that we have found very useful is to have a time set aside for these, we call them critical conversations, where when we notice something, we discuss something, we reflect on it, and then we name it, and then it leads to some action. That's very important, that we sit and we think about how what we notice between us, among us, where we are in our spaces. For us, it's often training spaces that we are out meeting lots of people who are doing a sort of community treatment work. And so when we notice something, what action steps we take? And when we are noticing things, we look at how does the content and context affect the interaction in the moment? So not just in the moment as when we're out, but also when we are amongst ourselves as a training team. What are the power dynamics that we notice? What assumptions are we taking for granted? And how are the larger societal structures, power dynamics impacting us at that particular moment? And these current interactions between us. We found this model very useful. We only have a few minutes left. I can talk a little bit. We created this slide that talked to us to sort of tells the story from when we started this work very seriously and very dedicated in the summer and fall of 18. That we used these observations that we saw amongst ourselves and within the spaces where we were. That led to reflections amongst ourselves, but then it also made us think that we needed to have somebody come in and help us facilitate conversations amongst our group to be comfortable with one another, so that when we are working and being with others in our own organization and also in other organizations and structure. And we learned about this thing of calling in and calling out, meaning then when you call into your people of the same color that look like you, we can call in and talk about, that they may have been, said something that was racist, but we can also call out. And calling in and calling out has been a very important thing as Pascal was mentioning, in all the tables that we sit at. We all sit at many, many tables, and it's our responsibility not to be, for white people, not to be quiet anymore, and to hear when you're being called out by people from the Black or Indigenous and people of color group. So this is very, very important and good skill. So this is sort of our process, and we are not done, but also moving into sort of organizationally and also in our systems, how could we impact the language that are being used and in both in regulations and the standard of care. So that's just a kind of a quick overview of some of the ways in which you can help your organization with these principles that Pascal talked about, move things towards becoming an anti-racist organization.
Well, it is 2:29. I have to say it's been a pleasure presenting on such an important topic with Dr. Hella Dorning and with Pascal Jean-Noel. All of us are team members of the ACT Institute at the Center for Practice Innovations, located at the New York State Psychiatric Institute, part of Columbia University. And the overwhelming love that we have received from the audience. Thank you so much for the comments and the feedback and your own knowledge on the topic. Thank you so much. Pascal, Hella, any final thoughts?
Thank you for coming into the room and staying in the room and being so engaged. Yes, as folks stated, we could talk about this for hours. We really can. I feel like the time flew, so thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. And as somebody was saying quite a few times, we also have to remember to vote. So I would just stress that too. So thank you for all your participation, and let's all be in this work together. It is the important, as Edie Swartz said to me earlier today in a private conversation, that this is the conversation, the most important conversation of today. Thank you.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the conference, and you will have access to this PowerPoint and to the information provided here. Thank you so much. Stay safe, everybody. Enjoy.